was my sophomore year, and I had just moved into a new dorm after switching roommates. My old roommate, Jake, had graduated, and I was paired with someone new, Ethan. At first, Ethan seemed normal. Quiet, maybe a little reserved, but nothing out of the ordinary. He kept to himself, spent most of his time studying, and rarely went out. I thought I'd lucked out with a low-key roommate, but as the weeks went by, things started to get strange. It began with small things. I'd come back to the room after class and my stuff would be moved. Not a lot. Just a pen shifted on my desk or my chair pushed in at a different angle. I shrugged it off, thinking maybe Ethan had bumped into things while I was gone. But then I started noticing other things. My laptop would be warm, like it had been used recently, even though I hadn't touched it all day. My drawers would be slightly ajar, as if someone had rifled through them. I confronted Ethan about it, but he denied everything, his face blank and unreadable. One night, I woke up to the sound of whispering. It was faint, almost like a hiss coming from Ethan's side of the room. I turned over in bed, squinting through the darkness. Ethan was sitting at his desk, his back to me, hunched over something. The whispering grew louder, more urgent. I couldn't make out the words, but it sounded like he was arguing with someone. I called out his name, and the whispering stopped. Ethan froze, then slowly turned to look at me. His face was pale, his eyes wide and unblinking. He didn't say a word. He just stared at me for what felt like an eternity before turning back to his desk. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning I tried to brush it off. Maybe Ethan was sleepwalking, or maybe I'd just imagined the whole thing. But things only got worse from there. I started finding notes in my textbooks, tiny, scribbled messages in the margins. At first, they were just random words: watch, listen, soon. But then they became more personal. You left your window open last night. I like the way you hum when you study. I felt a chill run down my spine every time I found one. I knew it had to be Ethan, but when I confronted him, he just smiled and said, "I don't know what you're talking about." One evening, I came back to the room after a late study session at the library. The lights were off, and Ethan wasn't there. I flipped the switch, but nothing happened. The power was out. I fumbled for my phone, using the flashlight to navigate. The room. That's when I saw it. Written on the mirror in what looked like red lipstick were the words, "I'm always watching." My heart raced as I backed away, my phone trembling in my hand. I turned to leave, but the door slammed shut behind me. I spun around and there he was, Ethan, standing in the corner of the room, his face shadowed. He didn't say anything. He just stood there, staring at me with that same blank expression. I don't remember how I got out of the room that night. I must have pushed past him and run, because the next thing I knew, I was in the hallway, gasping for air. I went straight to the RA's office and demanded to be moved to another room. They said they'd look into it, but until then, I had to stay put. I spent the next few nights sleeping on a friend's floor, too afraid to go back to my dorm. A week later, I finally worked up the courage to return. I needed to grab some clothes and my laptop. When I opened the door, the room was empty. Ethan's side was completely cleared out. No bed, no desk, no trace of him. It was like he'd never been there. I asked the RA what happened, and they told me Ethan had dropped out of school. No explanation, no forwarding address. Just gone. I thought that was the end of it. But a few days later, I found another note. This one was tucked under my pillow, written in the same scribbled handwriting, "You can't get rid of me that easily." I moved out of the dorm that same day, and I haven't set foot in that building since. But sometimes, late at night, I'll wake up to the sound of whispering, and when I do, I can't help but wonder if Ethan is still watching.